Have you ever witnessed someone rise from invisible to unforgettable in a single moment? I saw it happen with my own eyes, and the memory still gives me chills. A tiny voice that had never been heard before suddenly filled an entire room, and everyone froze. But what happened next left an entire community in tears. She was always there, yet no one really saw her. The quietest girl in class, sitting in the back corner, never raising her hand, never making a sound. But on that ordinary Tuesday, she showed everyone that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most power. Emma Jenkins, 11 years old, with auburn hair always neatly tucked behind her ears and eyes that seemed to observe everything while revealing nothing. Martin Elementary School was filled with the usual chaos of fifth graders during lunch period. While the popular kids dominated the main tables with their laughter and inside jokes, Emma sat alone at the end of a bench, meticulously arranging her lunch items in the same order she did every day. The cafeteria echoed with the clatter of trays and excited chatter about the upcoming talent show, but Emma was silently counting the minutes until she could return to the quiet safety of her classroom. I was the school counselor, and I had been trying to connect with Emma for months. Her teachers flagged her extreme shyness as concerning. No behavioral issues, excellent grades, but absolutely no verbal participation. Some teachers had never heard her voice in nearly 2 years. Her file noted selective mutism, a severe anxiety disorder, where a child is unable to speak in certain social situations. At home, her parents reported she talked normally, but at school she was practically non-existent. The only person who seemed to acknowledge Emma was Lily Chun, a bright, artistic girl who occasionally sat with Emma at lunch. Lily would chatter away while Emma listened, occasionally nodding or offering a shy smile. It wasn't exactly a friendship, more like Lily had appointed herself Emma's unofficial spokesperson. Emma likes your new haircut, Lily would tell another student, or Emma thinks the science project was really fun. No one questioned how Lily knew these things when Emma never spoke, that ordinary Tuesday was about to become extraordinary, and that silence was about to be shattered in a way no one could have predicted. The tension began when Brittany Miller, the self-appointed queen of the 5th grade, decided Lily's handmade clothes were worthy of ridicule. Brittany, with her designer outfits and perfectly styled hair, had brought together her usual audience for what had become an unfortunate lunchtime ritual, finding someone to mock. "Oh my God, is that a tablecloth you're wearing?" Brittany's voice carried across the cafeteria as she pointed at Lily's colorful patchwork dress. "Did your mom run out of real clothes and start cutting up the kitchen stuff?" A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the nearby table. Lily's face flushed as she looked down at her dress, a beautiful creation her grandmother had helped her sew, with squares of fabric from family memories stitched together. "My grandma and I made it," Lily said quietly, her fingers nervously tracing the patches. "Well, your grandma needs glasses then," Brittany snickered, and her followers dutifully laughed along. "It looks like something my dog threw up after eating my art supplies." More laughter, louder now. I was on cafeteria duty that day, and had noticed the commotion starting. I began making my way across the room, but the cafeteria was packed, and navigating between the tables was slow going. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "It has pieces from my mum's wedding dress and my baby blanket, and, oh my God, that's even worse," Brittany interrupted, her voice dripping with mock horror. "You're literally wearing garbage." The tears spilled down Lily's cheeks now. She stood up to leave, her lunch barely touched, when something unexpected happened. Emma, who had been sitting silently beside Lily, suddenly moved. Her small hand reached out and gently pressed Lily back into her seat. And then the impossible occurred. "Stop IT right now." The voice that cut through the cafeteria noise was so startling, so unexpected, that everyone froze. It took several seconds for people to realize who had spoken. Emma Jenkins was standing now, all 4 feet and 7 inches of her, facing Brittany with a fierceness no one knew she possessed. The silence was absolute. Forks stopped midway to mouths. Conversation halted mid-sentence. Even the cafeteria staff stood motionless by the serving line. I stopped where I was, halfway across the room, afraid that any movement might break whatever spell had enabled this miracle. You don't get to talk to her like that, Emma continued, her voice shaking but clear. Her dress is beautiful. It's art. It's love. Your clothes are just things your parents bought. They don't mean anything. Brittany's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. She had been prepared for anything except this, being confronted by the girl who had never spoken a single word in school. You think being mean makes you important, Emma continued, gaining strength with each word. It doesn't. It makes you small. Lily is kind and creative, and she doesn't deserve this. Nobody does. The cafeteria remained in shocked silence. I carefully continued making my way toward the situation, not wanting to interrupt Emma's moment, but ready to intervene if needed. You're such a double quotes, Brittany began, attempting to regain control, but Emma wasn't finished. I've been watching for 2 years, Emma said, her voice growing steadier. I've seen you make 7 different kids cry. I've counted. I've watched you take Maya's cookies, rip Tyler's drawings, and tell Jamal his science project was stupid. I remember every single mean thing you've done because I see everything. Just because I don't talk doesn't mean I don't notice. By now I had reached their table, but I didn't intervene. Something powerful was happening, and Emma needed to finish. Lily's dress tells stories. What do your designer clothes say about you? Emma asked, then answered her own question. Nothing. They just show that your parents have money. But Lily's clothes show she has something better. Someone who loves her enough to make something special with. A tear slid down Emma's cheek, but her gaze never wavered from Brittany's increasingly uncomfortable expression. I'm not afraid of you. I'm just quiet. But I won't be quiet when you hurt my friend. The word hung in the air. Lily looked up at Emma with wonder, as if seeing her for the first time. Principal Warner had entered the cafeteria during Emma's speech, and now stood beside me, equally transfixed. Neither of us moved to interrupt. Some moments in education are sacred, and this was one of them. Whatever, Brittany finally muttered, clearly unsettled. Your dress is still ugly, she added weakly to Lily, but the power had shifted. No one was laughing now. No, it's not, came another voice. Jackson from the soccer team. My grandma quilts too. It's really hard to do. That dress is cool. Yeah, added Zoe from the table behind them. I wish I had something that's special instead of more clothes like everyone else. Slowly, remarkably, other voices joined in. The tide had turned. Emma sat down, her hands trembling violently now as the adrenaline ebbed. Lily threw her arms around her in a fierce hug. Thank you, she whispered. I finally approached the table, placing a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma, would you and Lily like to come with me for a moment? I asked softly. Emma nodded, seemingly unable to speak again now that the immediate crisis had passed. As I led the 2 girls from the cafeteria, I noticed that Brittany sat alone, her usual crowd having dispersed to other tables. In my office, Emma was silent again, her eyes wide as if she couldn't believe what she had done. Lily couldn't stop staring at her friend with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Emma, I said gently, what you did was incredibly brave. How are you feeling? She looked at me, then down at her hands, then at Lily. For a moment I thought she had retreated back into her silence, but then she whispered, scared. But okay, 3 words. A start. Principal Warner joined us, closing the door behind her. Instead of the stern administrative presence she usually projected, she knelt down to eye level with Emma. In 30 years of education, she said, her voice uncharacteristically emotional. That was one of the most courageous things I've ever witnessed. Emma's eyes widened slightly, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. Your voice matters, Emma, Principal Warner continued. It always has. I'm sorry it took something like this for us to hear it. Emma looked up, a question in her eyes. No, you're not in trouble, I assured her, reading her expression. Quite the opposite. Lily, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. Emma has been my friend all year, she said. We passed notes. She's really funny in writing. She helped me with my math when I was too embarrassed to ask for help in class. A small, secret friendship that had flourished in the margins, in past notes and shared looks. I made a mental note to be more observant of these quiet connections in the future. Would it be okay if I called your parents, Emma? Principal Warner asked, Not because you're in trouble, but because I think they'd want to know what happened today. What you did was special. Emma hesitated, then nodded. While Principal Warner stepped out to make the call, Emma slowly pulled a small notebook from her backpack and wrote something, then passed it to me. Is Brittany in trouble? The note read. I considered my response carefully. We'll be having a conversation with Brittany about how she treats others, I said. But today isn't about punishment. It's about courage and standing up for what's right. That's what you showed us. Emma wrote again. I didn't plan it. The words just came out. Sometimes that's how bravery works, I told her. It surprises even us. By the end of the school day, the story had spread throughout Martin Elementary. Teachers who had never heard Emma speak were stopping by my office, asking if it was true. The school felt different somehow, as if Emma's courage had created tiny ripples of change in our community. What happened next, however, was even more remarkable. Emma's parents arrived shortly after school ended. I had met them several times before during discussions about Emma's selective mutism. They had always been supportive, working with Emma's therapist and the school to find ways to help their daughter. They knew not to pressure her, knew that her silence wasn't defiance, but anxiety so overwhelming it physically prevented speech in certain settings. When they entered my office, Emma ran to them. Her mother knelt down and embraced her. We heard what happened, her father said, his voice thick with emotion. We're so proud of you, Em. Emma looked up at her parents. Lily's my friend, she said quietly. They were being mean to her. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth, tears immediately welling in her eyes at hearing her daughter speak at school for the first time. Her father blinked rapidly, struggling to maintain composure. Principal Warner explained the full situation, describing Emma's powerful stand against bullying. We've been working on our school culture, she admitted, but clearly we have more work to do. Emma showed extraordinary courage today. She's always been brave, her mother said, stroking Emma's hair, just in quiet ways most people don't notice. As they were preparing to leave, Lily and her grandmother appeared at the office door. Lily's grandmother was holding a beautiful fabric bag. We heard what happened, the elderly woman said, her accent thick but her English clear. Lily told me everything on the phone. I came right away from my shop. She approached Emma and held out the bag. For the brave girl who defended my granddaughter and my sewing. Emma carefully opened the bag and pulled out a handmade patchwork journal, bound in the same colorful style as Lily's dress, with a matching pen tucked into its spine. For your words, Lily's grandmother explained. Now that you're sharing them with the world. Emma traced the stitching with her finger, then looked up. Thank you, she said, the words barely audible but present. I have a sewing studio downtown, Lily's grandmother continued, addressing all of us now. I teach classes on Saturdays. If Emma would like to come, she and Lily could work on a project together. She looked at Emma's parents. No pressure to speak, just creating together. Emma looked at her parents hopefully. Her mother smiled through her tears. We'd love that. That might have been the end of it. A beautiful moment of personal courage. New connections formed, a small step toward healing for Emma. But what happened in the days that followed transformed not just Emma's life, but our entire school community. The next morning, I arrived to find Lily waiting outside my office, vibrating with excitement. You have to see this, she said, thrusting her phone toward me. My grandma posted about what happened yesterday on her business page, and it's going viral. I looked at the screen to see a beautifully written post about Emma's bravery, alongside a photo of the journal they had given her. The post had thousands of shares already. People are asking how they can support Emma and other kids like her, Lily explained. Grandma's phone has been ringing all morning. By lunchtime, local news had picked up the story. A reporter called the school, requesting an interview. Principal Warner consulted with Emma's parents, who were protective but also recognized that their daughter's story might help other children struggling with selective mutism and social anxiety. It's up to Emma, her mother told the principal. We'll support whatever she decides. When approached, Emma shook her head firmly. She wasn't ready for cameras and interviews, but she did write a statement in her new journal, which her parents shared with her permission. I didn't talk at school because words felt stuck. But when someone is mean to your friend, sometimes the words can break free. I'm still scared to talk most of the time. That's okay. You don't have to speak loud to matter. The simplicity and wisdom of her words resonated powerfully. The local newspaper printed her statement, alongside an article about selective mutism that helped educate our community about the condition. Children with social anxiety weren't just shy. They were dealing with real barriers that required understanding and support. 3 days after the incident, as it had come to be known, Emma came to school to find her locker decorated with colorful notes of support from classmates. Inside were small gifts, stickers, pencils, a tiny stuffed owl, because owls are wise but quiet, the note explained. Most touching were the personal notes. I'm scared to talk in class too. Thank you for being brave. Your voice is amazing when you use it. I'm sorry I never tried to be your friend before. Brittany was noticeably subdued that week. After a lengthy conversation with Principal Warner and her parents, she had been assigned community service hours helping the school librarian, a creative consequence that put her in a quiet environment surrounded by stories of courage and kindness. I spotted her at lunch, sitting with a different group than usual, her designer clothes still impeccable, but her demeanor less commanding. A week after Emma stood up in the cafeteria, Lily's grandmother arrived at school during morning announcements, accompanied by 3 women carrying sewing machines and fabric. Principal Warner invited them to the stage. As many of you know, we had a powerful moment of courage in our school last week, the principal began. It's inspired our community in ways we never expected. Mrs. Chin has an announcement to make. Lily's grandmother stepped forward, her small stature belying her commanding presence. In my country, before I came to America, I was a teacher, she began. Now I teach sewing. Last week, a very brave girl defended my granddaughter and our family tradition of storytelling through fabric. She gestured to the women beside her. These are my friends from the Cultural Arts Center. Together we want to start a new program at your school, Stitching Our Stories. The women unveiled a colorful banner with the program name. Every person has a story, Mrs. Chun continued. Sometimes we tell it with words, sometimes with art, sometimes with fabric. We will teach anyone who wants to learn, boys and girls, how to stitch their story into something beautiful. She held up a small quilt square. This square tells the story of Emma and Lily, 2 friends, one who was silent but found her voice when it mattered most. It will be the first piece in our community quilt. Principal Warner explained that the Cultural Arts Center had offered to fund an after-school program, starting immediately. Students could learn to create their own quilt squares, which would be assembled into a massive quilt representing our school community. The finished quilt would hang in the main hallway as a reminder of Emma's courage and the power of everyone's unique voice. The response was overwhelming. Sign-up sheets filled immediately. Even more surprisingly, parents began calling, asking to participate. What had begun as one girl finding her voice was becoming a community finding its collective voice. Emma herself joined the program, sitting quietly beside Lily at a sewing table. She didn't speak much, but she didn't need to. Her needle and thread spoke volumes as she carefully stitched her story into fabric, a small figure with sound waves emerging from her heart rather than her mouth. 2 weeks into the program, a major educational foundation contacted Principal Warner. They had heard about our school's transformation and wanted to feature our story in their national conference on social-emotional learning. They were offering grant money to expand the program to other schools. That afternoon, Principal Warner, Emma's parents, and I sat down with Emma in my office. The principal gently explained the foundation's interest and the potential to help other schools create similar programs. They'd like to make a short video about the program, she explained. They understand you're not comfortable being interviewed, but they wondered if you might consider being in some of the background footage of the sewing program. No speaking required. Emma looked down at her hands, thinking. You don't have to decide right now, her father assured her. And you can absolutely say no. Emma reached for her journal. She still preferred writing to speaking most of the time, and carefully wrote her response. Will it help other kids like me? Yes, Principal Warner said honestly. I believe it will. Emma wrote again. Can Lily be with me? Of course. She considered this, then wrote, Okay, I'll do it. but I don't want to talk on camera." "That's perfectly fine," Principal Warner assured her. "Your actions speak loudly enough." The film crew arrived the following week. They were respectful and careful, keeping their distance from Emma and following the strict guidelines we had established. They filmed the sewing circle, interviewed Mrs. Chen and Principal Warner, and captured footage of the growing quilt squares pinned to the display wall. What no one expected was what happened during the final hour of filming. The crew was recording B-roll of students working on their quilt squares when Emma suddenly stood up. She whispered something to Lily, who broke into a wide smile and nodded encouragingly. Emma then approached the crew, her notebook clutched to her chest. I moved quickly to her side. "Everything okay, Emma?" I asked quietly. She nodded, then held out her notebook with a message clearly written. "I wrote something about the program. Is it okay if I read it? For the video?" The film crew looked at me and Principal Warner in surprise. This was decidedly not what we had agreed upon. Principal Warner quickly called Emma's parents, who were equally shocked but gave their permission if Emma was truly volunteering. "Are you sure?" I asked her gently. "You absolutely don't have to do this." Emma nodded again, more firmly this time. The crew set up a simple shot in the library, Emma sitting at a table with her journal, Lily beside her for moral support. They promised they would stop immediately if she felt uncomfortable. Once the camera was rolling, Emma took a deep breath and opened her journal to a carefully written page. Her voice was soft but clear as she read, "My name is Emma. I have selective mutism. That means my anxiety makes it hard to speak in public, even when I want to. For 2 years, I didn't say a single word at school. 2 weeks ago, I spoke up to defend my friend. It was scary, but not as scary as watching someone be hurt and doing nothing. I'm still quiet most days. I might always be quiet, but now everyone knows that quiet doesn't mean nothing to say. It just means my words come out differently, sometimes through writing, sometimes through sewing, sometimes through just being a good friend. Our quilt program helps everyone tell their story, not just the loud people. Every square is a voice. Every stitch is a word. Thank you for listening to the quiet voices too." When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The camera operator had to take a moment to wipe her eyes before confirming she had captured the entire statement. Emma closed her journal, her hands shaking slightly, but a small, proud smile on her face. Lily threw her arms around her friend, and Principal Warner, unable to maintain professional distance, joined in the hug. The foundation video was released a month later. It was viewed over 2 million times in the first week. News outlets picked it up, running stories about Emma, the quilt program, and the issue of selective mutism. The quiet girl who had been invisible for so long was having a profound impact without having to say much at all. Donations poured in from around the country. Mrs. Chen's modest after-school program expanded to 3 days a week and spread to 2 neighboring schools. A children's book author contacted Emma's parents, asking permission to write a picture book inspired by Emma's story, with Emma as a consultant and a portion of proceeds going to anxiety awareness programs for children. The most profound changes, however, were the ones happening within our school walls. Emma still didn't speak often, but when she did, everyone listened with genuine interest. She had earned a different kind of popularity, not based on designer clothes or social power, but on authentic courage. Brittany, to everyone's surprise, joined the quilt program after completing her library service hours. She sat at the far end of the table from Emma and Lily, awkwardly threading her first needle under Mrs. Chun's patient guidance. Her quilt square, when finally completed, featured a surprisingly vulnerable image. A girl standing alone, surrounded by empty speech bubbles. "It's me," she explained quietly to Mrs. Chen, unaware that I was nearby. "All the things I say that don't really matter." 3 months after the incident, our school hosted an unveiling ceremony for the completed community quilt. It was massive, over 100 squares of varying skill levels, each telling a personal story, stitched together into a colorful tapestry of our school's collective voice. Families packed the gymnasium. Local dignitaries attended. The mayor presented Principal Warner with a Community Impact Award. Mrs. Chen and her sewing circle received a standing ovation. The foundation sent representatives, who announced an expansion of the program to 20 more schools across the state. When it came time to unveil the quilt, Principal Warner invited Emma and Lily to join her at the podium. Emma had agreed in advance to pull the cord revealing the quilt, but everyone understood she wouldn't be speaking. As the girls approached the podium, a spontaneous standing ovation erupted. Emma froze, clearly overwhelmed by the attention. Lily took her hand, providing silent support. When the applause finally quieted, Principal Warner thanked everyone for coming and explained the significance of the quilt project. "And now," she said, "Emma and Lily will unveil the Martin Elementary Community Quilt." The girls moved to the large covered frame. Lily gave Emma's hand a reassuring squeeze as they grasped the cord together. With a quick pull, the cover fell away, revealing the stunning patchwork of stories. Gasps and applause filled the gymnasium. The quilt was beautiful, a riot of colors, techniques, and personal expressions stitched together into a cohesive whole. At the center was Emma's square, the small figure with sound waves emanating from her heart, surrounded by concentric circles of squares from her classmates, teachers, parents, and community members. As the applause continued, Emma suddenly tugged on Principal Warner's sleeve. The principal leaned down, and Emma whispered something in her ear. Principal Warner's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded and adjusted the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "Emma has something she would like to say." The gym fell silent as Emma stepped up to the microphone. She stared at the quilt for a long moment, then turned to face the audience. "Thank you," she said, her voice small but steady. "This quilt shows that everyone's voice matters, even when it's not making sound. Sometimes the quietest people have the most to say. We just need to find different ways to listen." 2 sentences, simple but profound. The audience erupted in applause once again as Emma stepped back, visibly relieved to be out of the spotlight, but also standing a little taller. As the ceremony concluded and people mingled, examining the quilt up close, I noticed Brittany hesitantly approaching Emma and Lily. The 3 girls stood awkwardly for a moment before Brittany spoke. "Your square is really good," she said to Emma. "Mine looks terrible. I'm not good at sewing." "It takes practice," Lily replied, her tone cautious but not unkind. "Could you ... Brittany paused, clearly struggling. "Could you maybe show me how to make my stitches straighter?" "If you want to." Emma and Lily exchanged a glance, having one of their silent conversations. "Okay," Emma said quietly. "Next session." It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it was a beginning. The ripple effects continued to spread throughout our community. Martin Elementary saw bullying incidents drop by 67% in the months following the quilt project. Quiet students found their voices through art, writing, and yes, occasional spoken words when they felt safe enough to share them. Mrs. Chin's sewing studio downtown began offering free weekend classes for children with anxiety disorders. Emma attended regularly, gradually becoming more comfortable speaking in the small, supportive environment. Her parents reported breakthrough moments at home. Emma initiating phone calls to Lily, ordering her own food at restaurants, even raising her hand occasionally in class. The most unexpected outcome came 6 months later, when Emma's therapist invited her to speak to a small group of children also struggling with selective mutism. It was optional, with no pressure, but Emma agreed immediately. With Lily and Mrs. Chan in attendance for moral support, Emma read a letter she had written about her journey, then answered questions, sometimes verbally, sometimes in writing when the words wouldn't come. One small boy, about 7 years old, hadn't spoken outside his home in over a year. At the end of Emma's presentation, he tugged his mother's sleeve and whispered something to her. She wiped away tears and nodded encouragingly. The boy approached Emma hesitantly, then held out a folded piece of paper. Emma opened it to find a carefully drawn picture of 2 children, one with a speech bubble, one with a heart radiating light. "That's you," the boy whispered, pointing to the heart figure. "And that's me, someday." Emma knelt down to his level. "What's your name?" she asked softly. He glanced nervously at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. "Michael," he whispered, so quietly it was barely audible. Emma smiled at him. "It's nice to meet you, Michael. I like your drawing very much." His answering smile was worth every difficult step of Emma's journey. As for me, I keep a small framed photograph in my office, a picture of Emma and Lily standing beside their section of the quilt, Emma's quiet pride radiating from her slight smile. It reminds me daily of what I witnessed, how the smallest voice shook our school and created lasting change, how courage doesn't always roar, and how we must always listen for the voices that struggle most to be heard. Thousands of children pass through a school counselor's career. Some faces and names fade with time, but I will never forget Emma Jenkins, the girl who didn't speak for 2 years, then stood up and changed an entire community with a handful of powerful words and the courage to finally let them out. If Emma's story moved you, remember that there are quiet voices all around us, waiting to be heard. Sometimes the most profound messages come in whispers. All we need to do is create enough silence to hear them, and enough safety for them to emerge. The next time you meet someone who seems withdrawn or silent, remember Emma. Their quiet exterior might be hiding a voice of extraordinary power, one that simply needs the right moment and the right reason to break free. And if you're someone whose words get stuck inside, know this: your voice matters, even when it isn't making sound. Your thoughts, your art, your presence, they all speak volumes. And when you're ready, if and when the moment comes that matters enough, your voice will be there, waiting to surprise even you with its strength and clarity. The world needs all our voices, the loud and the soft, the bold and the hesitant. Each one adds another square to the great quilt of our shared humanity. Each one matters. Each one deserves to be heard, including yours.